Warning. The following podcast contains sexual themes and inappropriate language. Listener discretion is advised. For the best listening experience, headphones are recommended.
Her, the existence play.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Quiddity, a podcast where we deconstruct the human experience. I'm your host, Casey Winslow. Today, a special guest will be joining us who has had extreme experience in the minefield of love. A classic schmoozer, if you will. Rumor has it, he's good with the ladies. Please join me in welcoming Mateo Maverick.
Thank you, Casey.
Wow, he's even more gorgeous in person.
It's a pleasure to join you today.
Thank you for agreeing to come on. I was surprised my sister had connections to such famous actors like yourself.
I never used to be this famous, but look at me now. I'm being requested for every rom-com in production. It's not a surprise. How could you not hire me?
We all know Mateo is credited to many masterpieces. He recently won Best Actor at an indie film festival. Now, everyone is dying to know, what are you working on next?
As you may know, Love from the Shore just released on DVD last week. It was one of my favorite films. We spent time in the Caribbean, danced around in the Bahamas before ending in Hawaii.
That sounds like a dream. Are you a fan of the tropics?
Not really.
Oh. Okay, well, what have you been doing since Love from the Shore?
Plenty of hookups.
Business hookups?
Sure, lots of those.
Of course.
There was that one bombshell.
An action film?
A long blonde mane, curvy in all the right places.
Oh, excellent. I didn't know you did equestrian movies.
We had a hell of a time.
Wow, you're religious?
Sometimes. I recently finished a film called A Heaven Tried to Love.
I don't think I've seen any advertisements for that one.
No, it's a little too controversial for the mainstream market.
What is it about?
It's about a young couple who were so similar that they were extremely different. They were best friends for years until they fell in love. The twist was the boy was a Christian and the girl was agnostic. So the film has been under fire for promoting missionary dating.
What's missionary dating?
Essentially, it's when one person in the relationship is a Christian and attempts to convince their partner to join the faith. The new believer usually doesn't continue their faith once the couple breaks up, which is exactly what happened in this film.
Gosh, that sounds intense. Do you find it to be more serious than your previous films?
Overall, not really. The ending felt more humorous than sad. It reminds me a lot of My First Love.
Oh, now that sounds juicy.
She didn't believe in this whole missionary dating thing.
Did you try to do this missionary dating thing with her?
Yeah, sort of. She didn't buy it. It took her a while to find religion, and it wasn't any of my doing. I think about her sometimes.
Name?
I shouldn't say.
Of course.
But she did change the course of my career.
How so?
Without her, I don't think I'd be an actor. She taught me to love what I did, pursue my dreams. I tried to impress her with every part I got.
What role was your favorite?
Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, and I busted my ass to get her to notice me.
Did she?
I'm fucking Mateo Maverick. Of course she did.
Did she play Juliet?
I wish. It would have been a good excuse to kiss her. She was a good kisser. We spent a lot of late nights steaming up the windows in her car. But she was so much more than that. I didn't realize it until it was too late.
Have you spoken to her since?
No, I didn't want to talk to her.
Why is that?
It's complicated.
You can share, only if you want to.
There wasn't anything too sexy between us. It started when I was young, a little naive, and very horny.
The listeners don't need those details.
It was a crucial part of my development.
Save that for the sex ed talks.
Oh, I will. I had a lot of experience, but no one has made me feel so intensely in the same way she did. She was my best friend. We were inseparable in high school. I asked her to a dance, and the rest was history.
Would you consider your relationship with her good?
I would, for the most part. I did my best, but to her, I didn't do enough. I was from a background of people that didn't know how to love, and I was poor. I had so many disadvantages she didn't understand. We would fight over stupid things like status and popularity. It was silly bickering at first, but later in the relationship, we argued about how we spent our time and who we spent it with. She was always self-conscious about our relationship, but I only cared what she thought of me.
What was she like?
Beautiful, stunning, Amazing. Everything about her was just...
Perfect. I really thought I loved him.
How did it end?
Oh,
You don't have to answer that if it's too personal.
I just worry about tarnishing Mateo's image.
It's all right. Mateo knows I'm interviewing you as well.
That's odd. We aren't on speaking terms.
After you graduated?
Yes, but our relationship ended much earlier than that. I went on my senior trip with an assortment of other students, and I grew close to them extremely fast. They pointed out how bad my relationship with Mateo really was. I was unhappy. I was tired of caring for someone that couldn't care for me back. I didn't know how to communicate my feelings.
How so?
It was like I lost my hands. I would scratch and claw in defiance when he would begin to tell me things about myself. These were very mean and nasty things. I couldn't cover my ears because my hands would fall limp. Part of me couldn't believe that I, who was so powerful with my hands, had become useless by his simple words, his hateful words. My efforts all ended in vain. He had control of my hands.
This was a physical feeling?
I know it sounds crazy. I sound crazy.
No, not at all. Everyone feels like they lose a part of themselves in relationships.
Mateo took a lot of myself from me.
What did you do? Surely you couldn't continue being with him.
Well, I didn't see it at the time. He was all I had. He taught me that he was all I had.
How did it end?
Well, I met a boy on the trip and we started talking. I wasn't interested in him romantically at first, not until after Mateo and I broke up. However, Mateo would tell you that I
Cheated. She cheated on me with that church boy. I'm a Christian, all right? I tried so hard to change her, but someone else did it instead. I love God. I swear to you I do. Just because I don't go to church every Sunday and I fuck up sometimes doesn't mean I'm not a Christian.
I understand. Sorry for bringing it up.
No, I'm glad I could talk about it. I think first love is an important phenomenon. It teaches you what betrayal and heartbreak feels like. It also teaches you what it means to care about someone else that isn't yourself. If I hadn't loved her, I would have never gotten in front of the camera. For that, I'm thankful.
Thank you for sharing. All right, and that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you for tuning into Quiddity. I wish you all a wonderful evening and a life full of experiences. Tune in next week to hear from another human sensation. Was he your first love?
No. I'm glad he wasn't.
Why is that?
I always wanted my first love to be someone special, someone that loved me back.
Have you had your first love?
Yes. Yes, I have.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Quiddity, a podcast where we deconstruct the human experience. I'm your host, Casey Winslow. Our guest for today is none other than the ex-inmate and current firefighter, Julian Monroe. Many of you have probably already heard his life-changing story on social media. Found with undisclosed hard drugs, Julian was arrested at the mere age of 22 years old. Julian has agreed to share his story on the show today and answer some questions that the fans have sent in. Thank you for joining us here today, Julian.
The pleasure is all mine, Casey. By the way, how is your cat doing?
Oh, Snickers is doing so much better. She was in shock for a few days. Julian and I met not too long ago when he rescued my cat from a tree.
Cats are my soft spot.
Julian, do you mind sharing some of your story with us today?
I would love to. It's a story I never get tired of. Every time I tell it, I'm reminded how lucky I am to be alive.
Something that people are dying to know is how you ended up in prison. Why were you selling drugs? How did you get arrested?
It's kind of funny, actually. How I was caught. I was living in my minivan with my fiancé and our son. She was the one doing the drugs. I was just the dealer. I've never snorted anything in my life. It was a rainy evening, and my fiancé and son had just left to go on a walk. Then the cops pulled up and asked to search my car. It happened so fast that I just stepped out with my hands above my head and told them to arrest me.
You told them to arrest you?
More like I asked them to. I told them I had been in the business for a few years, and that was enough for them to push me to the car and put the cuffs on. I wanted them to make it quick and take me away as soon as they could.
Was this to protect your fiancé and son?
I was worried about my son getting caught up in the life I was living. I also knew it was where I belonged. I had nothing. No house, no extended family, no life. I just did the only thing I could, sell drugs.
Why were you living in a car to begin with?
I ran away from home. I was a foster child for most of my upbringing, and one night I just up and left. They micromanaged me and treated me like I wasn't even human.
Where did you go?
I moved in with some people I knew a few hours away. I couldn't finish high school, and I left so much behind.
What did you leave behind?
I left behind the possibility of graduating high school, a foster brother, and a girlfriend.
A girlfriend?
Yeah, she was awfully young.
How so? Who was she?
He was my mentor.
What was the age difference?
A little over 3 years. Definitely only legal because of the Romeo and Juliet law.
How long were you with him?
Only 3 months, maybe even 4. It was so long ago I can't even remember. I regret it a lot. That relationship, I tarnished her.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, I would. Part of me wonders if that was who I was all along. That was until I went to prison.
What happened there?
I was done running. I was all alone for the first time. I didn't have anyone to turn to.
He would always run. He never had anywhere to go. I thought I could make him a home with my body. He would say silly things like he would tarnish me or whatever that meant. I didn't believe it until I realized he was too old and seasoned and I was too young and inexperienced.
Did you think it would last?
No, not at all.
Why is that?
It was in the corridor. He would always tell me he loved me, just so I would say it back.
She never would. She would just shake her head and smile.
Then it was February, and there was snow outside.
I was off to rehearsal, one of the few times I would actually show up.
He said the same goddamn words he would every time.
But this time, as the door began to close, she ran up and threw it open.
I might have been out of my mind.
Then she said it.
I love you, Julian.
No one had said it to me that way before.
I was definitely out of my mind.
Tears were rolling down her face.
I didn't love him.
Then she kissed me.
I really didn't love him. I wanted to. So badly, I wanted to love this broken boy that called out to me every day in the halls. This broken boy who could so easily be fixed by me.
I knew it was a lie.
That very kiss was the time I lost my lips.
When she kissed me, it was rough, full of anguish.
They were numb after that. Everything I did was numb. Everything my lips touched was numb.
That's when I knew it wouldn't work out.
Sometimes food is too hot or too cold, and I can't tell. I can't speak in the same way I did before. I can't form sentences with my mouth. I am without communication.
That takes me back to my days as a high schooler.
Doesn't it? I was so deeply fed by the undeniable rush of doing something I shouldn't.
That kiss?
It was her first, but it definitely wasn't mine.
What happened after?
I left and I didn't look back.
Was that the last time that you saw her?
Yes, and I sure as hell won't forget it.
Have you spoken to her since?
No. I tried to a few times, but it never happened.
How did this change you? Shape you?
It taught me that it's possible to be loved and cherished, even if it's not in the way you want it to be. Sometimes I think of her when I wonder if things will get better. The last time we talked, she said she would forgive me as long as I would pay it forward.
Pay it forward?
Give the love that I had for her to someone that would love me back.
Was that your fiancé?
No. It was meant for me to love myself.
How could someone just disappear like that? I asked myself for months after he left.
I thought you didn't love him.
I did. In a roundabout way. It came to me in the doctor's office. Every inch of me being inspected for the numbness that desired to obtain my body. You see, once I realize someone has wronged me, I begin to compartmentalize that individual until there is nothing left of substance. I fit into a box in my mind of people that took something from me. In my mind, he isn't even human. Julian was the first person to take something from me. My first kiss. My lips. They would whisper his name on the phone and kiss him in my dreams. Everything that was mine began to become someone else's.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Quiddity, a podcast where we deconstruct the human experience. I'm your host, Casey Winslow. We have a social media sensation joining us for this episode. From taking over your favorite social media platforms to writing smash hit singles, give a warm welcome to Morgan Lee.
Thank you.
Is this your first time on a podcast?
Yes, it is.
Oh, that's surprising.
I know, isn't it?
I'd think other places would have contacted you first.
Well, most podcasts aren't hosted by my sister.
There it is, folks. Morgan Lee is my sister. We may share the same father, but we didn't spend much time together as kids. Oh, well, that might be a story for Morgan to tell herself, if you'd like to.
I would be more than honored.
They didn't know they were siblings until she was 13.
13? That's quite old to find out you have a long-lost sibling.
We met around then, too.
Casey and I stumbled across each other at our father's funeral. We both were dragged off with our mothers when we were born. I hadn't ever spent time with our father the way Casey had.
This was also the time that Morgan began to write.
I couldn't help myself. I'd never been musically inclined, but watching Casey dance in the rain through the cemetery on the day of our father's funeral sparked something in me. Music just flowed from my pores. Casey's small feet stomped on the graves. It was like inviting everyone to dance. I could have sworn I saw my father, the one whose photo sat on the mantel, dance with Casey. It was a duet of sorrow and joy.
Sorrow and joy. Maybe you could call it bittersweet.
What a fascinating story.
Yeah, that was my first song.
So, Morgan, where is your music career now?
I moved to LA a while ago, all by myself. Once I moved, all I did was focus on music. It manifested in every thought. Sweet symphonies would pour from my ears. People thought I was silly, always matching music to the occasion.
You still do that, don't you?
Of course I do. There's too much music and too little time.
Now tell us, what is this social media following you've gained recently?
I feel so old when I talk about social media. I had just gotten into the music scene, and people told me to post videos online. Then I got comments on my hair and my makeup. I was always told that pink hair would never get me anywhere, but the media proved everyone wrong. It was the one thing that made me famous.
How the tables have turned. I do see that you've dyed your hair back to its natural color. Is there a reason for that?
Well, yes. A friend told me that it's the color that best complements my skin.
So, who is this friend? I haven't even heard about her myself.
She was really something.
Who is she to you?
Someone special. We'd known each other for a while. We grew distant. She left to pursue her dreams. I was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to leaving the nest. By the time I'd moved to LA, I ran into her again. She hadn't changed one bit.
How long have you known each other?
We met the night of Father's funeral.
Huh? How come I didn't meet her?
I wanted to keep her to myself. She was beautiful.
Oh, are you?
I know. It's surprising, isn't it? Especially being in social media, I'm expected to maintain a perfect feminine image that supports heteronormativity, right? But she would tell me all the time,
Fuck what people think.
I believed her.
I'm sorry, Morgan. I didn't.
It's okay. It's quite funny how we assume everyone is straight, isn't it? I would have told people if they had just asked.
So, what about her? Is she...
I'd prefer not to have a label.
It was when I met her that I knew
I didn't fit the status quo anymore.
I was different. And that was okay. It didn't matter what anyone said to me. I knew in my heart that I just needed to be myself.
It's hard filling out questionnaires.
I never know what bubble to fill.
when they ask you about your sexuality.
It's almost like the universe is begging me
To be confused.
Which I was, for a very long time. It wasn't until I got to LA that I realized I loved her. At that point, it was too late.
Were you guys ever together?
I never got the chance to ask her.
I was scared. I didn't like to talk about it.
We met up in my apartment a few times. I would play her
Frank Sinatra, our go-to.
I really did love her, Casey. I did. Half the songs I write to this day are still about her. She lingers in the back of my mind, especially on rainy days like today.
It's raining, isn't it?
Quite the downpour, I would say.
What happened between you two?
Nothing.
Something.
How did you feel after it ended?
I felt alone. I had never felt so alone. I wish things were different. I wish
I'd never seen her in LA. It was that day that I lost my heart. I poured it all out for her. She knew every piece of me. I'd never done that for anyone before. Maybe I felt vulnerable, knowing that she knew all my secrets. She was one of the only people I trusted from start to finish. I trusted her when she knew me from that rainy graveyard day until the last time she sang for me. She knew that I lost my lips to Julian and my hands to Mateo, but she continued to believe that I would get them back. That was when I gave her the only thing I had left. My heart. It was the most precious gift.
Why didn't you date her?
I was too broken. Life was moving too fast. I was missing too many pieces.
Then why did you give her your heart?
I had nothing else left. Nothing else had substance. My heart was the only thing that could
keep me around. She didn't want to keep me around. Life is too complicated when you love someone that you've been told you can't. She couldn't decide between conforming to society's expectations or loving a woman. It was impossible.
I didn't expect Morgan to stay as long as she did. I lost my heart to her. I was so confused and torn. I didn't know what I wanted. I'd lost so much that the pressure was too steep to make a decision. I was in and out of the hospital.
Did she know?
No, I couldn't tell her. I hated the numbness of my hands. I broke my finger. Then I broke more fingers. I wanted to feel. I wanted to touch my skin and know it was mine.
So this was physical?
Physical to the point that it became psychological. It made me hurt myself. To remind me of the broken life I had lived.
Hurt yourself? Why would you?
It was because of him. The boy that was spectacular. He held a heart of gold, and I left him. He tried to fix me, and I gave up because I couldn't be saved. Morgan reminded me of him. Too perfect. I just couldn't love someone like that again. Morgan loved me better than anyone else. She went radio silent after we got into an argument. Chet Baker was playing that night.
Which song?
But not for me.
I'm not surprised.
I told her to turn it off. Then she told me that she loved me, but she knew that I could never love her back.
Because you were...
It had nothing to do with my sexual orientation. It had to do with my inability to love.
Without her, I wouldn't have pursued my dreams. She taught me lessons that only someone like her could do. I don't give a damn anymore. I'm shamelessly my authentic self.
Who was your first love?
I'm not sure if love lends itself to this conversation.
Why not?
There's no time for love as a doctor.
What about your patients?
That's where it all goes. My love goes into the people that I serve.
That must be hard.
It really is. When I lose a patient, it's just...
Heartbreak. Pure heartbreak.
I can't stand any more pain. It's traumatic for me every single time. But you can't let that show in the operating room.
Of course. Is it hard to let those emotions out?
Most definitely. There's already a taboo about boys crying. Imagine if your doctor cried too. On top of that, I have a whole team to be the fearless leader of. It's exhausting. It's social suicide to show any form of guilt or shame.
Guilt or shame? When do you experience that?
When I let a patient
die.
I feel like it's
All my fault.
what could I have done better?
What could I have changed?
Could this person be saved?
Could this person be fixed?
It's exhausting.
I can only imagine what you must go through. So, Wren, would you like to share why you're on this podcast today?
My pleasure. You may not have heard of me before. As Casey kindly introduced, my name is Wren Goodrich. I'm a small-town surgeon. I do my best to get by, but I'm definitely not anything special.
Wren is such a humble man. He's a little bit more than just a small-town surgeon. We both went to high school together, and he's been writing books for quite some time. I remember the teacher taking your composition books during science class. We were all surprised when Wren ended up in med school.
Well, it was a surprise to me, too. I was thinking of just studying kinesiology.
Wren was a track star, too.
Casey!
What? It's my podcast. I can brag about you all I want.
Okay. Audience, you can't listen to Casey's inflated truth about me. I'm seriously just a small-town doctor that dabbles in crafting works.
He must be the best crafter I've met. I posted on social media that we'd have a handsome doctor joining us today, and the audience absolutely ate you up, Wren. I have an abundance of questions to ask you today.
Ask away.
Here's one. Who was your first love?
You! It was always you!
Me?
The fuck?
That's a joke.
You should have said so, baby.
I wanted you to say that for so long.
I knew you couldn't resist me anymore.
I never loved you.
How could you say that you loved me?
You know you were mine.
I wanted you to be mine.
I wanted to be yours.
I know. I'm sorry.
So, who was it?
I feel sick. Can I step out for a moment?
Sure. Was he your first love?
I always wanted my first love to be someone special. Someone that loved me back.
Did he love you back?
I always wanted my first love to be tangible. Someone who let me touch their skin.
How did you two meet?
I always wanted my first love to be soft. Someone who kissed me without malice.
Was he your first kiss?
I always wanted my first love to be real. Someone who held the thing most precious to me without breaking it.
When did you start dating?
I think it was after I moved. I was in med school, maybe. I can't remember.
You can't remember? She was your first love, right?
Sometimes you have to forget the things that hurt you the most, Casey.
How long were you two together?
I'd say a little over 2 years. We broke up on
goddamn Valentine's Day.
You can never catch a break, can you?
I guess not.
How did it end?
In shambles. I loved her so deeply. Deeper than anyone I'd loved before. I gave her everything she wanted. She would complain about her lips being numb, so I would get her lip balms, ice cubes, and, well, kisses too. She always begged me to be gentle.
Do you know why?
There was this guy, an ex-boyfriend. He messed her up. All I could do was try to make her feel loved, but I was a busy guy.
I feel like I never heard from you after you moved away.
Yeah, I was in med school, running track, and working 2 jobs. I had to keep an eye on her, too. There was too much going on. I couldn't handle it all.
I got tired.
Exhausted, even.
I still couldn't feel my lips.
She stopped kissing me.
I started to shrink away.
I could see her leaving me.
He had given me so much, and I just
threw it all away. She tossed me to the side out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it at all.
After a 2-year relationship?
I know, right? I knew she didn't cheat or anything, but I couldn't understand why she just got rid of me. Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? I was ready to give it all up for her.
That was the problem. I couldn't take away his autonomy. I couldn't make him someone he wasn't. Wren has a heart of gold. He is the most incredibly kind person I know. He deserved more than someone who couldn't feel their lips.
I couldn't make her better.
I was scared of dragging him down with me.
So she left me.
I broke up with him because I was drowning in fear. It was so deep that I couldn't crawl out.
Did you lose anything to him?
Like the sensation of your hands.
Like the autonomy of your lips?
Like the blood in your pulsing heart?
No.
No?
No, Wren. I didn't lose anything. All I did was gain mosaics of beauty and memories. That's how I knew it was true love.
What does true love feel like?
It's quite silly for you to be asking me this, don't you think?
Not really. I think we forget what true love is once the world has hardened our hearts.
Are you saying my heart is hardened?
Almost.
Fine. Okay. Love is like meadows of green.
When the flowers are perfectly in bloom.
Each bud is full of pollen.
So honeybees can come and go as they please.
It's an open plain.
You can see from Los Angeles to Hawaii.
From Russia to New York.
From France to Rome.
It doesn't suffocate you.
But it changes you.
It's like a patient who gives you chocolates.
Or a cucumber lip balm.
Sometimes it's a struggle.
When the plains get dark at night.
When the clouds roll in.
When other people try to take your land.
When you get ill and there's no medicine.
When you get bored.
Or exhausted.
When you get lonely.
When you're filled with doubt.
I had to leave.
And I don't hate her for it.
I wish she would talk to me.
But I can't make time for her.
Encore!
You know what, Casey?
Fly me to
I still think about him.
After all these years?
Among the
I dream about him.
Let me show
I think he's the only one I could ever love.
on the nebula and Mars. Fly me, fly me, fly. Fly away.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Quiddity, a podcast where we deconstruct the human experience. I'm your host. Her. Yeah, that works. Today, we will have a very special guest joining us. He comes to us all the way from Nowhere, California, and hopes to share his extremely impactful story with a large audience. In front of me sits a man who holds no social inhibitions. Give a warm welcome to this notorious homebody, Dawson.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join you today. I've missed you.
It's wonderful to see you, Dawson. You haven't changed a bit.
So, what do the adoring fans have to ask me today?
Let me take a peek.
Your hair looks lovely.
Perhaps it would be best to introduce you with the basics. So, Dawson, what do you do for a living?
I work myself to the bone. I was a delivery manager for a couple years. Then I moved out to I hated the heat.
Of course. It is extremely hot in that part of California.
Also, the trash. It's disgusting to drive by bags of shit on the road.
Would you consider yourself a tidy person?
Relatively, yes. I keep a clean house.
That's a lie. I've smelled cigarette smoke in there.
It's hard to keep up with so many animals, though.
I can imagine so. Are you an animal lover?
Sure, let's go with that.
What do you do now? Have you found a career path?
I guess. I get paid above minimum wage.
Great. Where do you work?
I just started it last month.
Can you repeat that? I think your microphone cut out.
Where I work?
Sure. Yeah, sounds like a wonderful place to work in Nowhere, California.
It has a name, you know.
God, what is that noise?
What noise?
Never mind.
Are you gonna keep yapping, or can we get straight to...
What inspires you?
Do I have to answer?
Well, the listeners are here to learn more about you.
Whatever. I guess I like politics, scrolling on forums, finding conspiracy theories. World events are exciting too. But you know, nothing makes me as excited as you.
So, Dawson, why are you here today?
'Cause you asked me to come.
Did I?
I'm pretty damn sure of it.
Here's a better question. Do you feel like you have any wisdom to bestow on the audience? What human experiences have shaped you recently?
lying in bed with your sexy body. I think about you all the fucking time. I've been trying to call you. I think you may have blocked my number. I keep trying to get through, but I can't. I want to make sure you're still alive. I mean, be a shame if you and... I wouldn't want all of that to go to waste.
Dawson, this is enough. The listeners don't want to hear this.
Do you think I give a fuck about the listeners?
Stop.
The only one I care about is you. Baby, I think about you all the time.
Stop talking.
That night we spent together,
Please, stop this right now.
I wanted so badly.
Dawson, stop.
Honey, you can't stop love. I love you.
Stop. Stop.
I love you.
Shut up.
I love you.
Shut up.
I love
Dawson,
you.
stop.
I love you.
Don't.
I love you.
can't.
I
Don't.
love you.
Love
I
me.
love you.
Leave me alone.
I love you.
Shut up.
Are you okay?
What?
You were screaming.
I was... What?
Screaming. Loud.
Casey, I'm sorry. I don't feel well. Can I step out?
Go ahead, please.
Where were we?
At the part where you were talking about her.
What about it?
Why did you do it?
Do what?
You know, Dawson. You know.
Fine. Have you heard of the exploding ants?
No.
Essentially, there's this ant colony that gets ill, terminally ill with a virus. Then the sick ants have to leave the colony.
Why do they have to leave?
So they don't infect anyone else.
When they leave, they don't like to leave alone.
One healthy ant will sacrifice itself to travel with the sick ant out of the colony.
Then the two ants will find a place, a safe distance away, and die.
The sick ant's brain swells and bursts. The healthy ant will lay there and be infected by the same disease. They will witness their companion, their very ill companion, die. Then they die too.
Quite heroic, isn't it?
Quite foul, isn't it?
Dawson, this doesn't justify cheating on your wife.
The heart does what it desires.
It's disgusting. The fact that Dawson thought it was okay to let me get involved with this shitstorm of a life. I know. It was just as much my fault as his. I was too naive to realize what it meant to be the other woman.
Did you...
Does it matter? The moment he took off his wedding ring when he met me was the moment he committed adultery.
I was washing dishes.
Even laying in his bed, it was cheating.
I was cold.
Don't even get me started on the phone calls.
I was lonely.
He would play his guitar, tell me stories of the nebula, read me poetry.
I was in love.
With me or with my face. That's what I thought. I spent the night on the phone with him for hours. He told me he loved me. I told him I loved him. He told me to come over. That night, I went to his house at 2 a.m. I was scheduled for work before the sun would rise. I called in sick. We spent the night tangled in the sheets. Then, I found out he was in love with my face.
The way her eyelashes held mascara. The way her eyes would fill with joy in the sun. The way her lips curled into a smile. The way she had a crook in her nose. The way that moonlight would dance on her chin. The way her cheeks would get flushed.
I lost my face that night. After laying in his bed, I went into the mirror and I couldn't recognize myself. My complexion looked like a bowl of alphabet soup. Except this soup had indistinguishable letters. Nothing made sense. I would touch my warm cheeks and feel sandpaper. At that point, I believed I could never be loved again.
Please, call me back. I'd love to hear your voice.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Quiddity, a podcast where we deconstruct the human experience. I'm your host, Casey Winslow. This episode includes a one-of-a-kind girl. She has a plethora of knowledge to share with us today pertaining to her loss of self-identity. Join me in giving a warm welcome to one of the strongest women I know.
Thank you, Casey.
It is a delight to have you on today. Is this your first time on a podcast?
Yes, it is.
Oh, that's surprising.
When you asked me to come on, I couldn't say no. I appreciate having a platform to share my struggles and triumphs.
That's exactly what the human experience is all about.
Should we tell the listeners how we met?
Most certainly. You are welcome to take it away.
No problem, but you'll have to fill me in the details I might miss. You know how my memory gets. So, we met by the ER.
I live next door to the local hospital, and I was going for a jog.
I was unconscious in the parking lot. I hadn't made it to the front doors.
I helped her in. She was so small and frail.
It was because of them. All of them. I couldn't find the power to eat because everything had begun to taste like nothing.
I checked her in and visited her every day on my morning runs.
Now the rest is history.
She's been out for
4 months. I'm feeling more alive than I have in years. Literally, years.
So why are you on today? What do you have to give?
I don't have much to give, but I have a lot to say. With this body I inhabit, I am silenced by men, by women, by onlookers, by mothers. I want to show that I have autonomy. Those who have experienced trauma have autonomy. We are not robots. We exist, and we have a lot to say. This is my first step to reclaiming myself.
To get started, I have to ask, is there anything you'd be uncomfortable answering today?
No, nothing at all. My friends call me an open book, through and through.
Good. We have a lot to dive into today. All right, our first question is an easy one. Tell us, do you have any actors you've been looking up to recently? Specifically, any male actors?
Oh, geez. This is supposed to be easy? I guess I'd have to say...
Mateo Maverick.
Don't be so tense. Is there a reason you answered that way? Do you know him?
Well, we were together.
Was he your first love?
No, I'm glad he wasn't.
Why is that?
I always wanted my first love to be someone special. Someone that loved me back.
Have you had your first love?
Yes. Yes, I have.
May I ask who?
I think he was on here a few episodes ago. The small-town surgeon.
Wren Goodrich.
Oh, we went to high school together.
I'd heard a lot of good things about you before we met. That's why I knew I could trust you.
From him?
Not exactly. He didn't talk about high school much. Your sister would talk a lot about you, though.
My sister? The musician?
The jazz-obsessed singer.
Morgan Lee.
Frank Sinatra was our go-to.
You must be an avid listener of the podcast.
Sometimes. It's more like I've known everyone you've brought on. It's funny to hear about their perception of me. Especially the firefighters.
Julian Monroe.
I haven't spoken to him in almost a decade. He would always run. He never had anywhere to go.
Is there anyone else?
Yes. I didn't listen to that episode, though.
Why is this? Who was it?
It was too traumatic. He's an awful, awful person.
Dawson. And I'm not an awful person. You're just too sensitive.
That was a tough one to get through. Was he the catalyst to your loss of self-identity?
He was the tipping point. I'm still working on deconstructing my experiences. I lost a part of my body each time I met someone new. It was slow, unrecognizable at first. Some days it feels like I'm not even real. That's why I would hurt myself. I wanted so deeply to feel. Food was the last thing to go. It was the only way to keep me alive, and I didn't want to live anymore. I began to lose my hair. I began to spend days inside my house watching the sun rise and set. Nothing mattered. I was beyond existence.
You experienced all of this?
Unfortunately, yes.
Did you go through this alone?
Yes.
You are quite the fighter.
I know. I've been told that before.
By me.
By me.
By me.
By me.
And by me.
I see them sometimes.
The people who've hurt you?
The pieces of my body that are missing.
I didn't realize all these people hurt you so bad. I never meant to put you through all this again. I know. Would you like me to take us off the air? Okay, I won't. But we need to wrap this up soon. I didn't only lose my face that night. I'd lost my whole body, too. To Dawson. To everyone. Even Wren. Yes. Maybe. I did.
It reminds me of August nights. When I have to keep all the windows open. Sometimes there's a noise that sounds like crickets. They are loud. Annoying, even. I don't have any other choice but to lay there and listen. It's those nights that I feel restless. Sometimes I'm so restless that the hours pass and my body goes numb. My hands, to my lips, to my heart, to my face, to my whole body. Then I would purge myself of them by causing myself affliction. Changing my hair color, vomiting, biting my nails. You name it. I did it. Those nights I realized that my body is no longer mine. It was never mine. The minute I lost my lips, I lost it all.
I didn't mean to take them from her.
Once I stretched out my hands and touched places I didn't want to, my body was no longer mine.
It was an accident. We were young, foolish.
My heart, my dear sweet heart, I gave it away when I could truly trust someone.
I tried to hold it so lightly.
And my face. My goddamn face. The thing I treasure. The thing that defines me of my very existence. The thing that sets me apart. It left when he lured me in.
It's not my fault.
Well, it sure as hell isn't mine either. How was I supposed to know? How would I know that a cunning middle-aged man like you would deceive a 19-year-old girl like me? My face held the last hope of love. I lost my identity after him. In turn, I lost my body, too.
I'm so sorry. I loved you. I had to let you go. I have so much life to live.
It's okay, Wren. I do, too. I have a life to live to find my body again.
You, my girl, are strong.
I try.
You succeed.
Don't fill me with words you can't prove.
I don't need to prove it. You've already done it. You have. You've been with yourself this whole time. She's there. Just find her. Go on.
One day I will find my body again. When I look in the mirror, I want to see myself. I want to feel myself. I want to belong to me and only me. It's my very existence at stake. Because of my body, I exist. I step foot on the pavement to remember I am still here. I tell my narrative to stay alive, you see. Without it, my existence is futile. This is why I tell stories. Say it. The thing that you are afraid to? It's the catalyst of your very existence.
Cast, in order of appearance. Host, played by Jaden Brunhaver.
Mateo Maverick, played by Dylan Lopez.
Her, played by Kay Sanchez.
Julian Monroe, played by Toby Straw.
Morgan Lee, played by Jackie Takarabe.
Wren Goodrich, played by Ford Sachsenmaier.
Dawson, played by Landon Moir.
Written, directed, and produced by Rachel Herriges.
Sound design and editing by Simon Justis.
Art and promotion by Alix Andersen.
Thank you for listening to Her, the Existence Play.
So I'm gonna stop. No, you know, I'm not even gonna stop. I'm not even gonna stop. You're gonna have to listen to that. Okay.